Countdown, we are live. Hello, I'm Willie Bragg. Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show, where I discuss politics and what is hot on the international scene. And the last thing we need is something hot when it comes to Russia versus the United States in regard to the shit that's going on down over in the Ukraine, the dispute between Russia and Ukraine. We really want to avoid war at all costs. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to shoot a video in a second, but I would just say that I hate to be proven correct when people keep ignoring what could prevent a lot of shit to begin with. Let me just put it that way. When it came to the Iraq war, I warned people what was going to happen. I ended up being correct. It's nothing to do with foreign policy, just domestic politics. I warned the left, watch out. They're going to cheat Hillary. Hillary's going to cheat Bernie. She cheated Bernie. Joe Biden and the corporate Democrats in 2020 cheated Bernie again. Whenever I warn people, we must not do Medicare for all. If we do Medicare for all, it'll be a disaster. So let's not even do forced to vote. And because people did not do forced to vote, we definitely don't have Medicare for all. And because, Democrats rather do keep private insurance rather than to do actual healthcare reform, we are stuck with a Republican healthcare plan, i.e. Obamacare, invented by the Heritage Foundation. So I hate to be right, because when I'm right, I hate being right all the time. I'm correct about a lot of shit. It's because I predict a lot of negative things are going to happen, and it happens. And I warn people what they need to do to prevent it. But, it seems like the powers that be rather not listen to reason and go about their wrong way, and then we're all fucked over as a result. So anyway, enough about my yapping right now. We're going to play speech by Joe Biden in regard to the situation with Russia and the United States in regard to Ukraine, and why this is a bad idea. And I will go share some insights right afterwards. So give me a moment here where I can play the damn thing.
American alliances are our greatest asset. And leading with diplomacy means standing shoulder to shoulder with our allies and key partners once again. By leading with diplomacy, we must also mean engaging our adversaries and our competitors diplomatically, where it's in our interest, and advance the security of the American people. That's why yesterday the United States and Russia agreed to extend the New START Treaty for 5 years to preserve the only remaining treaty between our countries safeguarding nuclear stability. At the same time, I made it clear to President Putin, in a manner very different from my predecessor, that the days of the United States rolling over in the face of Russia's aggressive actions, interfering with our elections, cyber attacks, poisoning its citizens, are over. We will not hesitate to raise the cost on Russia and defend our vital interest and our people. And we will be more effective in dealing with Russia when we work in coalition and coordination with other like-minded partners. The politically motivated jailing of Alexei Navalny and the Russian efforts to suppress freedom of expression and peaceful assembly are a matter of deep concern to us and the international community. Mr. Navalny, like all Russian citizens, is entitled to his rights under the Russian Constitution. He's been targeted for exposing corruption, He should be released immediately and without condition. We'll also take on directly the challenges posed by our prosperity, security, and democratic values by our most serious competitor, China. We'll confront China's economic abuses, counter its aggressive, coercive action to push back on China's attack on human rights, intellectual property, and global governance. But we're ready to work with Beijing when it's in America's interest to do so. We will compete from a position of strength by building back better at home, working with our allies and partners, renewing our role in international institutions, and reclaiming our credibility and moral authority, much of which has been lost. That's why we move quickly to begin restoring American engagement internationally and earn back our leadership position, to catalyze global action on shared challenges. On day one, I signed the paperwork to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. We're taking steps led by the example of integrating climate objectives across all of our diplomacy and raising the ambition of our climate targets. That way we can challenge other nations, other major emitters, up the ante on their own commitments.
Enough of that. There's some things to be said about that. We're starters. I'm glad they're going to try to restart the START treaty, because it's absolute insanity that we walked away from that treaty. That was for Trump to prove that he was not in bed with Putin. You didn't have to prove that, because honestly, anybody could tell you that the Russian collusion, if they were fair-minded, was absolute conspiracy bunk by Hillary Clinton and corporate Democrats to deflect and to basically find a scapegoat as to why anybody would possibly not support Hillary Clinton, when Hillary Clinton is good enough reason not to support Hillary Clinton. Not that it's great to support Donald Trump, because honestly, that's not a choice. But anyway, so the idea of having to vilify Putin at every turn, Putin is a son of a bitch. He's a piece of shit. He's an asshole. But honestly, they don't have to be a military threat to the United States or the West if the United States stop trying to be in Cold War mode. That's another thing right there. And for what? Because your Democrats are mad that Hillary Clinton lost the election. Well, Democrats, you shouldn't have nominated Hillary Clinton. You shouldn't have nominated him. It's your mistake. Take the L. Own it. And for what? For the United States to go and to sit there and to indirectly support Nazis in the Ukraine. Everybody talks about fascism coming from Russia. And Putin is an authoritarian right figure. But he's an authoritarian rightist along the lines of maybe Pinochet or Salazar of Portugal, Pinochet of Chile. I wouldn't say he's Mussolini, and I wouldn't say he's Hitler. Okay, but the Ukraine government has Nazis within their government in cabinet positions. And which I want to talk about. It reminds me of another situation when the United States had their butts hurt over Vietnam, and when in 1979 Cambodia was invaded by Vietnam, and the United States were butthurt over it. So even though Vietnam was getting rid of a dictator by the name of Pol Pot, the United States were opposed to Vietnam's actions. Now, for those that hate communism on the right, the Khmer Rouge was a communist organization. So, and Vietnam was also governed by the Communist Party too. But the thing about it is that Pol Pot killed over 1 million people through the killing fields. It was something that went beyond the ideology of communism so bad that the Vietnamese was like, man, that is fucked up. Vietnam rolled their tanks into Cambodia, and let me tell you, the people of Cambodia were done the biggest favor in the world when Vietnam literally liberated the people from rule of Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge government. But United States, what they did is they hitched up with China while the Soviets hitched up with Vietnam. And so the United States, while they did not overtly embrace Pol Pot, but they still embraced Pol Pot anyway when they embraced Prince, how do we pronounce his name? Prince Sihanouk. Hold on. Sihanouk. My apologies. It's a for the English language, it's a difficult name to pronounce. Prince Sihanouk allied himself with the Khmer Rouge, which means that the United States, who backed Prince Sihanouk, were indirectly siding with the Khmer Rouge. The government of China were inside with the Khmer Rouge, and of course, the Soviet Union sided with Cambodia. I presume so did some client states like Cuba, places like that, with the Soviets. And objectively speaking, the Soviets and the Vietnamese were the good guys, and China and Prince Sihanouk and the United States were not. I mean, and they were willing to work together to oust out the Vietnamese. So I mean, so you get what I'm saying. I mean, the what's going on, and with the United States selling arms to Saudi Arabia, they're also contributing to genocide in Yemen that's taking place right now. And if the United States ends up in a war with Russia through NATO, with a war with Russia, what happens? What happens is that you're going to end up indirectly siding with Nazis in the Ukraine, and how insane that is, honestly. But Joe Biden also talked about political prisoners and human rights abuses. Look what we have done to Ed Snowden, the man who has to live in Russia because he'd be arrested if he leaves Russia. And you got Julian Assange, who basically told the truth about U.S. foreign policy, also a political prisoner, for doing his job as a journalist. This is why in my most of my video commentaries with basically, we're all Julian Assange, because that's an important issue right now when it comes to having a free press, which is also why I urge people to continue their support for independent media. But having that said, the United States, as I said, they ended up doing these things. So hold tight a second here. To show you how irresponsible Biden is with this tough talk against the Soviets, what happened is that well, I'll explain it in just a second. I'll play this quick video and I'll go further into explanation as to why this is all bullshit. Give me a moment here. I'm a one-man production,
I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes. It was
the joke heard around the world, the one by President Reagan about bombing the Soviet Union, and it resulted in a Soviet red alert, and it became a campaign issue in this country. Now, Marvin Kalb has learned that the Soviets responded in their own fashion.
The president was joking his way through an audio check on August 11th.
That I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
By August 14th, the story became world news, a major item on Moscow television where the joke was not treated as a laughing matter. August 15th, a coded message left Soviet military headquarters in Vladivostok. It said, in part, "We now embark on military action against the U.S. forces." The code was instantly broken by U.S. and Japanese intelligence. This is what then happened. A special command unit in Ussurisk went on wartime alert. Key Japanese military units raised their readiness status. Soviet naval vessels in the North Pacific, baffled by the order, checked with Vladivostok. Confusion. U.S. intelligence urgently canvassed for signs of an imminent Soviet attack. Found none.
There was what they described as a wayward operator in the Soviet Far Eastern Command who sent out a message alerting Soviet forces in that area that a state of war existed between the United States and the Soviet Union.
Within 30 minutes, the mysterious Soviet alert was canceled. Was it unusual? Not according to U.S. officials.
They said it particularly happens on weekends when discipline is a little less than it might be on weekdays.
But August 15th was a weekday. One senator said the alert must have been a joke. A congressman said it was Russia's way of answering the president. Most officials said no comment, though one did speculate that the Russian might have been drunk. Marvin Kalb, NBC News, the State Department.
Okay. One of the reasons I did a blast from the past is that Ronald Reagan, I know he was joking around saying that, but Ronald Reagan rattled his sabers, and a lot of conservatives, Reagan, Republican types, neocons, and just generic Republicans would tell you Ronald Reagan beat them commies and with his military strength during his presidency. We could use another man like Ronald Reagan today. Unfortunately, they accomplished that. I mean, because Reagan, for some reason, Reagan was so influential that the Democrats started implementing a lot of the a softer form of Reaganism, in the same way that Thatcherism became a thing within the Labour Party in England during the days of Tony Blair. They were called New Labour in the UK, and in America they were called the New Democrats. Not to be confused with the New Democratic Party of Canada, which is absolutely awesome and based, but the American version of what it means to be a New Democrat here in the United States, meaning thus the Democratic Leadership Council came in and Reaganized the Democratic Party, which resulted in Bill Clintonism. Clintonism still is a cancer rotten at the Democratic Party today, and so as I said, DLC, Democratic Leadership Council, I've said many times, Reaganized the Democratic Party. We're still living with that today. New Deal conversation was dead on its tracks. Reaganism in a lighter, more woke form came into being. So, this is why today's Democrats wear their pink pussy hats. But, oh, no, we can't have Medicare for all, and we can't have a Green New Deal, and we can't have free college, we can't have federal jobs guarantee, just like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema suggested we should not do so. Because, that's woke, but, you wear your pink pussy hat and go to the demonstrations and call everybody that's slightly to your right or even to your left as racist. That's the modern day Democratic Party. And, as I said, and really, the corporate Democrats are not all that left. They're not all that left. They're not all that left. They're to the right of the British conservative parties when you think about it in terms of things like healthcare and the welfare state and things of that nature. And even in many cases, the Iraq War. There were the Prime Minister David Cameron, while he was, back in the day when he was a Tory MP in the parliament, was opposed to the Iraq War. God bless him at least on that. But so Joe Biden wants to sit there and try to imitate Reagan. That's the wrong lesson. And this is why, when it comes to partisan politics, the Democrats are going to have their asses trounced in November, and they're going to blame the left. They're going to be blaming woke skulls, not for Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. They had nothing to do with that, and that was corporate decisions on their part. But they're going to be blaming them for demanding things like Medicare for all and Green New Deal. In other words, they're going to sit there and ape the diarrhea that comes out of the mouth of Stuart Barney from Fox Business Report. Just because he has a British accent doesn't make him clever or smart. So anyway, that's what it's coming right down to, and so America's learning. American politicians perpetually learn the wrong lessons. They learn the wrong lessons, and so my message to Joe Biden is: do not imitate Ronald Reagan. Too late. He already did. I mean, his former boss, Barack Obama, said that his policies are so conservative that he would have been considered a moderate Ronald Reagan Republican in the 1980s. Bill and Hillary Clinton Reaganized the Republican Party. So everybody's trying to do their part to imitate Reagan, and Reagan's been rehabilitated, of course, and so, while Donald Trump is perceived as the most evil person in history, Ronald Reagan's been rehabilitated. Ronald Reagan governed to the right of Donald Trump. George Herbert Walker Bush was rehabilitated. George Herbert Walker Bush governed to the right of Donald Trump. George W. Bush, our fucking most dumb president and worst president in U.S. history, also governed to the right of Donald Trump. So, I mean, it's just as that, the Trump derangement syndrome. Jimmy Dore said it best, that the Democrats hated Nader for giving us George W. Bush. Now they embrace George W. Bush, and they still hate Ralph Nader. Tells you that the so-called woke moderates within the corporate Democrats are one of the most right-wing people around. And now there they are trying to start a fight with Russia. Now, I know some people be like, oh, you're just one of those blame America first left-wing people in style of the gray zone. Well, the gray zone, they're not wrong on every single thing. They're more correct than the so-called shit lives out there. But I got my issues with gray zone. I don't agree with them on everything, but they're more correct than that crowd of shit lives who are now wanting to go and prove how red, white, and blue and true blue American they are by aping the foreign policy of George W. Bush, but do so with a rainbow flag behind them. It's still neoconservatism, just the same, folks. So that is it. We're ready to go through another Bush-Cheney era, but this time with Biden, with regard to the invasion of Russia. That looks like it's somewhat inevitable, and I hope, dear God, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, that there's not going to be an invasion of Russia. It is absolute insanity to do this. Doesn't mean that I love Russia, but I don't want to see this planet roast itself into a crisp through exchange of nuclear weapons. It is insane to do this. It's not appeasement. And Joe Biden, you will not be Neville Chamberlain if you go and do the invasion of Russia. I mean, you avoid the invasion of Russia. You're not being Neville Chamberlain. It is insane to start a fight with a nuclear power over a country in Eastern Europe. I don't want Russia to invade the Ukraine, but I don't want the United States to invade Russia either. Do everything you can to negotiate a peace between them without resorting to war. Do not do war. Do not do war. We had enough of this shit. And it's just like it's the wrong lesson we keep learning over and over and over again. Look what happened in Afghanistan in the 1980s. United States backed the Mujahideen rebels, right-wing Muslim rebels against the Soviets in Afghanistan. Guess what? Soviets were driven away, and almost a decade later, a little over a decade later, 9/11 happened. So we keep learning the wrong lessons. We keep learning the wrong lessons. What problem Saddam Hussein might have been? He didn't have weapons of mass destruction, but what problems he did commit still didn't justify the United States going into the Middle East, but the problems that existed because of Saddam Hussein was the result of the United States backing Saddam Hussein prior to all this shit. In the same way, the United States backed Afghanistan, and the United States had Osama bin Laden on the payroll of the CIA, and this sort of thing just keep repeating over and over. Insanity is called repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, and that's exactly what's happened. We're repeating insanity by repeating the same wrong shit over and over again. I have said this, it's been my personal slogan for many, many, many years. And my slogan is, I'm already against the next war. Honestly, since World War II, just about every conflict the United States has been in, they have not made the situation better. I'm not American bashing, and I'm not telling you anything, and for anybody who's like, on the Republican side of the equation that happens to peek at this channel, I'm not saying anything any more different than what Ron Paul or even Rand Paul would say. Because at least as wrong as they are on economics and maybe a handful of social issues, they're not wrong on foreign policy. And I can at least say that. And, what's sad about the rise of libertarianism being popular within the Republican Party. They learned the wrong lessons. They copied the economic bullshit of libertarianism, but not the foreign policy, not the pro-legalization of marijuana position, not the pro-LGBTQ position that's supposed to go along with libertarianism. They take what's shitty about libertarianism and reject what's actually good about libertarianism. Just as, a lot of American liberals today, because of Bill Clintonism, liberalism became the nanny state without the actual nanny. So, and that's a consequence of America not having a Labor Party in the United States in a way that Sweden has the Social Democrats, or the UK have the British Labor Party, or France having the Socialist Party, or Canada having the New Democratic Party. Unfortunately, we do not have that. We have two rotting shit corpses called the Democrats and the Republicans. That's not a choice. That's a guaranteed bullet in your head either way, consequentially, as a result of voting for either one. But again, insanity is repeating the same shit over and over. Democrats, Republicans, Democrats, Republicans. What do I do? How about voting for a third party? How about just leaving the ballot line blank unless you're voting for a statewide referendum or a constitution, yay or nay, depending what the issues tend to be. Anyway, that's just basically my spiel for today. Here on the chat line, we have here, let me scroll. Okay, we have Hot Retarded Chicks. How are you doing? Let's see. Invade. I hope you are joking when you said that. Invade Russia. I hope there's sarcasm when you say that, because I do not believe in invading Russia or invading any country. I am opposed to any invasions by the United States, invasions of other countries against other countries that the United States may support or not support. Let's see. Willie, Morning You Streamer says Propaganda Live. Hey, how are you doing? Putin is Saddam Hussein. In a sense, he is. In the sense that Saddam Hussein was not a threat to the West. Neither is Putin. Let's see here. Joe is my pale-faced pony boy. Joe Biden says some rather silly things from time to time. I do admit. So anyhow, if y'all like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Feel free to share. Feel free to subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell to help us in the case of algorithms and shadow banning and basically YouTube doing their form of censorship against independent content makers. And let's see here. And until next time, remember, keep the class struggle going because we have class struggle we have to wage. And we're all Julian Assange. So, and thank you, Hot Retarded Checks. Thank you. Let's see. And now we end with music. Y'all take care. See you later. Music.